desert is defined as when within a walking distance of a mile that you don't have access to fruits, vegetables, dairy products. I classify a food desert as when you send your kid out to go get milk, they can't. You send your kid out to get an apple and they can't. But that same kid can walk in that same neighborhood and can find alcohol, can find cigarettes, can find drugs, can find guns, but can't find nothing healthy to eat. So there are over 5,000 food deserts in the United States because of the help of the community. Now there's only 4,999 because East McKinney is no longer a food desert. The other thing that we do, we provide internships and mentorships to kids in that community where we provide social training in social skills, etiquette, financial management, leadership skills, and anything that these kids need. Mentors, their mother loses her job, we help mom find a job. Dad's car breaks down, we help dad find a job because we recognize and realize it's more than just the student. Like, we gotta help the whole family holistically. The store that we are located at was built in 1953. To me, it was always kind of keen to me to keep that. Everything around here is now being destroyed and they build everything up in condos. But for me, it was looking at this building that had a lot of history and memories and preserving it and keeping it happy, and not change not change the building and change the culture of the community at the same time, where it's for the people and by the people. We are located, we're open from Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6. But with that, I want to tell you how we got to the little store. As it was mentioned earlier, my parents moved here in the 1950s. They lived in East McKinney. I was born in 1977. I was just a regular kid growing up. I was an A.R.O. student, never got in any trouble. I was a mama's boy, but I always wanted to fit in. I always wanted to be a part of something. Weren't very wealthy at that time as well. And the kids in that neighborhood, there was just a lot of things that weren't supposed to be going on. There was gangs, drugs, fights, things to that extent, and I gravitated to that. My older brother JJ was a weed leader, and I became a weed leader at the age of 15. I used to go out every day after school from 3 o'clock all the way till 10, and I would sell marijuana. I had these dreams, I had these goals of I wanted to be a drug dealer. That's what my dream was. That was in 1992 at the age of 15. In 1998, I ended up getting arrested by the federal government for being the leader organizer of a drug distribution. It was me and 37 other people and my 2 older brothers. JJ, who was already incarcerated. I loved JJ was my hero. I loved him. Everything he did, I wanted to do. I don't blame him for anything that I did. I took those upon myself. When I was sentenced by the federal government, I was sentenced to, this is the life after life. What a second chance can look like. And that will kind of be played out a little bit more as I speak. But as I said, I grew up as any other kid, right? I had these goals. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a fireman. I wanted to win the Super Bowl. But as I got older, those dreams and goals changed. When I was sentenced in 1998, I was sentenced to life without parole, 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 40 years, 40 years, 40 years, and 80 years. So in total, I had life without parole plus 320 years, which meant that I would never get out of prison. I was sentenced under the mandatory federal sentencing tough on crime laws. The judge wanted to give me a lower sentence, but he couldn't. He told me that his hands were tied. As I mentioned as well, my 2 older brothers were incarcerated with me as well, but they were in different prisons. When I first went to prison in 1998, the first 4 or 5 years, I lived like I was living like I was dying. I had no idea, no hopes, no thoughts that I was ever going to get out of prison. My release date said death. There was no release date for me. And I had kind of got caught up into that prison life. 2002, March 28th, they're calling for me on the intercom to the lieutenant's office. And typically when they call you to the lieutenant's office, it's kind of, I knew something, I had a feeling something was happening in my case. I was thinking I was probably going home. I had my appeal in. So before I go to the lieutenant's office, I go to the phone and I call my dad. I called home. I didn't know if mom or dad was going to answer. but my dad answers. And my father right now is 77 years old, and he's old school, right? He never really showed much emotion when we were growing up, other than when he was mad at us, which was a lot. But I never seen him cry or anything like that. And when I call him, he picks up the phone, and I can hear him sniffing and like he's crying. And I say, Pops, what's going on? Why are you crying for? And he tells me, he says, they killed him, son, they killed him. And I said, they killed who, Dad? And he goes, your brother JJ, this morning, 2 prisoners stabbed him to death. And at that moment, at that time, I was already at my lowest, and I thought that I couldn't get any lower. But that was the last straw that, as they say, broke the camel's back. I was in my cell. We were locked down for about 7 or 8 days, 24-hour lockdown. I wasn't allowed to leave my cell. And I had made this decision that I was going to take my life. I didn't want to live anymore. And the day that I was going to take my life, I remember getting out of my bed, and I look into this mirror. It's this chrome mirror. And I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm angry. And I look and I say, you know what? I had this out-of-body experience, and I'm talking to myself like I've never talked to myself before. And I said, you know what, Jason? You're not going to take your life right now. You're going to actually get your life started today. That somehow, some way, you're going to live every day like you're going home tomorrow. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be next week. It might not be next year. But if you give all your dedication and commitment to living out that promise, that it will happen. If you give your life to the Lord, that it will happen. That I am going to make sure that my brother JJ did not die through nothing. That through the loss of his life, I'm going to get my life back. From that day forward, I lived to those 2 commitments of honoring my brother's name and getting out of prison. And not only that, but coming back to the community that I was poisoning and changing, bettering, and saving lives. Those were my goals that I envisioned that it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know that if I don't give up and give into the system, and I keep believing in the Lord, that somehow, some way, He will open those doors for me.